Welcome to Mindfulness Stories. Sit back, relax, and get comfortable, because these stories may help you discover something interesting about kindness, courage, peace, mindfulness, and the calmness already living inside you. Our first story begins deep within a peaceful forest, where a young deer named Sol was about to discover something that would change his life forever. Sol was one of the fastest young deer in the entire forest. Every morning, before the sun had even fully risen, Sol was already running. Running through fields, running beside rivers, running through conversations, running through meals, running through life. Even when nothing dangerous was happening, his body and mind always felt rushed. The older animals often noticed this. One morning, an old rabbit quietly asked him, "Why are you always in such a hurry?" Sol laughed quickly, because if I slow down, I might fall behind. But secretly, Sol didn't even know what he was trying to catch anymore. Take a moment to reflect on that. Because sometimes people become so busy rushing through life that they forget how to truly enjoy it. One warm afternoon, while racing carelessly through the forest, Sol wandered further than he had ever gone before. The trees became taller. The air became cooler. The sounds of the forest softened, until eventually he discovered a hidden lake so calm it reflected the clouds perfectly, like a mirror. Beside the lake sat an old tortoise wearing a tiny woven hat. The tortoise slowly opened one eye. "You must be very tired," he said gently. Sol looked confused. "I'm not tired," he replied quickly. But the tortoise smiled softly. Sometimes the body keeps moving long after the mind becomes exhausted. Those words stayed inside Sol's mind, because deep down, he realized the tortoise was right. Even while resting, his thoughts still raced constantly. The tortoise invited Sol to sit quietly beside the lake. At first, Sol hated the silence. His thoughts bounced everywhere. He kept wanting to get up and leave. But slowly, he began noticing things he had ignored his entire life. Birds singing softly in distant trees, wind moving gently across the water, sunlight warming his fur, the peaceful rhythm of breathing. And for the first time in a very long while, his mind felt calm. The tortoise smiled. Most creatures spend their lives chasing the next thing. Very few ever learn how to fully experience the moment they are already living. Take a moment to think about that. I'm sure your future self will thank you. Over the following weeks, Sol returned to the lake every single day. The tortoise taught him mindfulness, how to pause before reacting emotionally, how to breathe slowly during stressful moments, how to listen carefully, how to notice thoughts without instantly following them. And slowly, Sol discovered something surprising. Slowing down did not make life smaller. It actually made life feel bigger. Food tasted better. Friendships felt deeper. Sunsets became more beautiful. Even simple moments began feeling magical. One evening, while watching stars reflect across the lake, Sol asked the tortoise, "Why does everybody rush through life so much?" The old tortoise smiled softly, then replied, "Because many creatures are searching outside themselves for peace, without realizing calmness must first be discovered within." Now, my friends, our next story teaches something very important about kindness, because small acts of kindness often become much more powerful than people realize. Far beyond the forest, there stood a mountain village where a young girl named Luma lived. Luma loved helping others. She helped elderly neighbors carry baskets. She shared food with hungry animals. She smiled warmly at lonely people. But some children laughed at her kindness. "Why help everybody so much?" they asked. "Nobody notices anyway." One freezing winter morning, a huge storm suddenly arrived. Strong winds shook the village. Snow covered the roads, and many villagers became trapped inside their homes. As the storm grew stronger, Luma noticed an elderly man struggling to carry firewood through the snow. Without hesitation, she rushed to help him. Together, they slowly carried the wood safely home. The old man smiled gratefully. "Thank you," he whispered softly. Luma simply smiled back. Later that same day, she helped a lost puppy trapped beside the river. Then, she delivered warm soup to a sick neighbor. Then she helped younger children stay calm during the storm. By nighttime, the entire village had heard about Luma's kindness, and something beautiful began happening. Other villagers slowly started helping too. One family shared blankets, another cooked extra food, others checked on elderly neighbors, and slowly, the entire village became warmer, calmer, and safer together. The next morning, the village leader visited Luma. "You changed the whole village yesterday," he said gently. Luma looked surprised. "I only helped a few people." The village leader smiled. "Kindness spreads much further than most people realize. Take a moment to reflect on that, because one small act of kindness can sometimes change somebody's entire day." Now, my friends, sometimes children worry about fitting in. Sometimes they feel different from everybody else. So this next story is for anyone who has ever felt alone. Deep inside a bamboo forest lived a tiny panda named June. June was quieter than the other young pandas. While others played loudly all day, June loved painting peaceful pictures beside the river. He loved listening to rain, watching clouds, and sitting quietly beneath bamboo trees. But because Jin was different, other young pandas sometimes excluded him from games. "You're too quiet," they laughed. Slowly, June began feeling lonely. One evening, while sitting sadly beside the river, an old crane landed nearby. The crane watched quietly for a moment before speaking. "Why do you look so heavy inside?" Jun sighed softly. "Because I don't feel like everybody else." The crane smiled gently. "And why is that a bad thing?" Jun looked confused. The crane pointed toward the forest. "Do all flowers bloom the same way?" "No," Jun answered. "Do all rivers move the same way?" "No." The crane nodded calmly. "Then why should all people be the same?" Take a moment to think about that. I'm sure your future self will thank you. Over the following weeks, the crane taught Jun something important. Quietness can become wisdom. Listening can become strength. Gentleness can become powerful. And slowly, Jun stopped trying to become somebody else. Instead, he began appreciating who he already was. Months later, a powerful storm damaged part of the bamboo forest. Animals panicked loudly. Nobody knew what to do. But because Jun stayed calm under pressure, he noticed safe pathways others completely missed. He guided frightened families safely through the forest. And suddenly, the same quietness others once mocked became the very thing that helped save the village. Now, my friends, our next story teaches an important lesson about anger and emotional control. High above the cliffs beside the ocean lived two young wolves named Ash and River. Ash became angry very quickly. If something upset him, he exploded emotionally. But River stayed calmer and more patient. One afternoon, the two wolves argued while climbing the cliffs. Ash became so frustrated he shouted, "Nobody understands me." Then he kicked a rock angrily. The rock slipped beneath him, and Ash nearly fell dangerously toward the ocean below. River quickly grabbed his paw and pulled him safely back. Both wolves sat breathing heavily. Then River quietly pointed toward the crashing waves below. "Look at the ocean," he said softly. Ash stared silently. Huge waves crashed violently against the rocks. The deeper ocean remained calm beneath the surface. River smiled gently. Our emotions are like the waves, sometimes loud and stormy on the surface, but deep inside, there is still calmness too. Ash sat quietly for a long time thinking about those words. Then River taught him something simple. Whenever emotions became too strong, pause, breathe slowly, notice the feeling, and allow the emotional wave to pass before reacting. Over time, Ash slowly changed, not because he stopped feeling emotions, but because he learned how to respond wisely instead of reacting impulsively. Take a moment to reflect on that, because mindfulness does not remove emotions. It teaches us how to handle them more peacefully. Now, my friends, our next story teaches the importance of honesty. Near a peaceful riverside village lived a boy named Eli. One afternoon, while helping clean the village garden, Eli accidentally broke a beautiful stone lantern. Immediately, fear rushed through his body. Nobody saw it happen. He could easily walk away and pretend nothing happened. For a moment, he considered lying, but deep inside, his conscience felt heavy. That evening, Eli walked nervously to the village elder's home. "I broke the lantern," he admitted quietly. The elder looked at him silently for a moment, then smiled gently. "Thank you for telling the truth." Eli blinked in surprise. "You're not angry?" The elder shook his head softly. "Mistakes can be repaired, but dishonesty slowly damages the heart." Take a moment to think about that. I'm sure your future self will thank you. The next day, instead of punishment, the elder invited Eli to help rebuild the lantern together. And while working, Eli learned something important. Honesty may feel difficult in the moment, but it creates trust, peace, and strength inside us. Now, my friends, sometimes life feels unfair. Sometimes difficult things happen we cannot control. So this next story teaches resilience. Far beyond the mountains lived a tiny bird named Nico. Nico dreamed of flying further than any bird in his family had ever flown before. But during his very first migration journey, a terrible storm separated him from the flock. Rain crashed through the sky, thunder echoed across the mountains, and eventually, Nico became completely lost. Cold, tired, and frightened, he landed beneath a tree and began crying softly. Nearby, an old owl watched quietly. After a while, the owl spoke. "Storms do not last forever." Nico sighed sadly. "But what if I never find my way again?" The owl smiled gently. "Sometimes getting lost teaches us strengths we would never discover otherwise." Over the following days, the owl taught Nico how to survive carefully, how to observe stars, how to stay calm under pressure, how to trust himself. And slowly, Nico became stronger, wiser, and more confident. Weeks later, he finally found his flock again, but something inside him had changed forever. He no longer feared challenges the same way, because he now understood. Difficult moments can sometimes help us grow stronger than comfortable ones ever could. Take a moment to reflect on that, because even difficult experiences can contain important lessons. Now, my friends, our final story tonight may be the most important of all, because it teaches the true meaning of happiness. Far away beside the sea, there lived a boy named Theo who believed happiness came from having more things, more toys, more treasure, more excitement, more attention. Every time he got something new, he felt happy briefly, but the feeling always disappeared again. One evening, Theo met an old fisherman sitting peacefully beside the ocean, watching the sunset. The fisherman owned very little: simple clothes, simple boat, simple home, yet he smiled more peacefully than anyone Theo had ever seen. Finally, Theo asked him, "How can you be so happy without having lots of things?" Then he pointed toward the horizon. "Do you see the ocean?" Theo nodded. The ocean never tries to become more ocean. It simply exists peacefully as itself. Theo sat quietly listening. The fisherman continued, "Many people spend their whole lives chasing more and more, without ever learning how to appreciate what already exists." That evening, Theo sat beside the fisherman, quietly watching the sunset colors spread across the sky, the sound of waves, the cool breeze, the peaceful silence, and slowly, Theo realized something life-changing. Happiness is not always found in constant excitement. Sometimes happiness quietly lives inside simple, peaceful moments. Now, my friends, before we finish tonight's mindfulness story journey, I want you to remember something important. Inside you already lives peace, kindness, strength, wisdom, and courage. Mindfulness simply helps you discover those things more clearly. So whenever life feels noisy or overwhelming, pause, take a deep breath, slow down, and remember tonight's stories. Like Saul the deer, you do not need to rush through life constantly. Like Luma, small acts of kindness can change entire communities. Like June, being different can become your greatest strength. Like Ash, big emotions can calm again. Like Eli, honesty creates peace inside the heart. Like Nico, difficult moments can help us grow stronger. And like Theo, real happiness often lives inside simple, peaceful moments. If you enjoyed these mindfulness stories, please like, subscribe, and share this video with your family, friends, teachers, or school. So together we can help create a calmer, kinder, and more mindful world for children everywhere. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next mindfulness journey.